Hey, we're back for another update on the Union Station project. Got some big changes to talk about. So here we go. Okay, this thing, as you can see, is a pretty big project. It's about 2.5 feet long, and I've reached a point where I've got a lot of problems here, and realizing I've kind of gone about this in a way that has caused all these problems. And you can see my original idea was to kind of build this thing with a flat bottom, and trying to keep all of this stuff flush to the bottom or a flat base was just a nightmare. Also trying to build a complete north and south wings and then try to wrangle these things together has been a nightmare. You may have seen in the last video that kind of ended in some disappointment and frustration. Started to see it on this paper, but the bottom of the station just does not sit flat on the surface, and I have had one afterthought after another about what to do about this station to try to fix it. And I've seen a lot of very kind, encouraging comments and suggestions from viewers, so thank you very much for those. I've come up with a solution. But before I tell you about that, I want to tell you about a little bit more about what I'm doing here. This station is going to be finished. This piece here, believe it or not, I'm not going to work on it any further. This part is done. However, the project itself is not done. I've got an idea for something much better. Okay, introducing something better. This was my original plan. One of the big things I've learned about doing this station, this is the first time I've ever tried anything of this size, is planning. This was my original plan. You can see it's kind of sparse and bare. Didn't really have a whole lot of detail. I just kind of drew out this plan, laid it out on a 12-foot grid, and went from there. Thinking that I could just go ahead and build the station from that. However, the new plan, as you can see here, has got a lot more detail. I've taken all of the building materials I'm using and scaled them up full size.
What? Is he starting over? Huh? I think that's what he said. He's starting over? Huh?
Oh yeah, I'm starting over.
Huh?
And by the way, the former project manager has been fired.
Oh, well,
Fired. So when I drew out this plan, all these little things that I overlooked are now taken into consideration on this new plan. You can see I've got all the detail for the walls are showing up in here. The columns, the door frames, everything has been drawn in detail. These are the window openings here in the front of the station. The columns, I've even got a little interior detail going on here. These are benches that are kind of back to back. They might be a little too crowded in here. Might have to space these out a little bit. There's the base for the clock tower, showing some things going on inside the clock tower, ticketing and post office and baggage, a few little things like that. I've got a little more detail into the concourses and stairwells. So this is going to turn out much better. There are just too many band-aids on the other station. I had so many problems trying to get things together, especially in the corners here. I'll show you a few more things that I'm going to try to fix in the new station. This has been a very valuable building project for me. I've learned a lot. However, I sort of stumbled around a lot. And some of the biggest problems I had were getting these north and south wings together. The joint here was a real patch-up job. Also, in the process of building this, at one point I thought I had these concourses reversed, and I tore it apart put it back together only to realize they were right to begin with. So I had to tear them apart again and try to glue them back together, and as a result this whole back wall got really torn apart and very crooked. The roof lines didn't match up here, you can see there. I've had all kinds of problems with that. The gable on the back didn't quite match with the gable in the front, and the whole thing is just, it won't sit flat on a flat surface. So this, like I say, I've got some great ideas for the new project. This one is now going to be a reference project for me. It was just too many band-aids on here to try to fix. The roof panels were troublesome to get on here. I've got lots of light leaks around the roof, and I've got all kinds of new ideas to do this. This station is going to be the centerpiece of nearly 1/4 of the layout when it gets done, and I've never cared much for the term perfectionist. It seems to me kind of a sour taste to it. I don't need perfection, but if I could do something better, I will. And I just got tired of all the problems I was having with this, and just too many band-aids on here, and I just didn't want to try to settle for something I knew I could do better. Other big problems came up when trying to build these walls. The biggest problem, or the mistake I made, was to build them up completely and then try to fit them together. And you can see in little corners like this where I'm trying to get something flat into an area where there's all kinds of detail. You can't really put something flat against this because there's too much detail. So my solution is all these new walls. I'm only going to go as far as, for now, just the first layer of styrene. There's going to be about 3 or 4 layers built up on here, but when I come to putting together the corners and so forth, just one layer to each piece here is going to be so much easier to glue these corners together, because everything's going to be flat. I can make just real simple butt joints between all the walls. You can see I've got most of the walls started here. And once all the walls are together, then I'm going to come back in with the detail. But I'm going to build this structure much differently than I did the other one. I'm going to build a base on the bottom. Everything is going to be glued to a base, which will solve the problem of everything kind of being off the base and not sitting flat on the ground here. So there will be a sheet styrene base on the bottom. I'm going to build these walls all around the base, so all be glued together, and I get the angle done right to begin with. It'll be a nice clean joint between the two. The roof panels, you'll notice I don't have any gables on here like I did on the other one. The roof panels were a big headache trying to figure out how do I get this down and glue these pieces in. My desire was to have access to the inside of the station in case I needed to do some fixing with lights and so forth. However, to do that with an open bottom, I'd have to glue down the rooftop here. Well, I've got to change the design of the roof panels. None of these gables are going to be on the walls, built into the walls. Those will be built into the roof panels. I'm going to make separate roof panels with just a little flange around the inside of the roof panel, and they will fit down on top kind of like a cover rather than gluing them down. So all the little gables in here that were built into the walls are now going to be part of the roof instead of the wall panels. And this line will be consistent all the way around the station. You notice all of the wall panels are just flat across the top, and that's the way it's going to be built all the way around the main terminal part here through the north and south wings, and for the concourses here. Another change at the end of the concourse, I'm incorporating the stairwell wall and the elevator shaft right into the end of the end walls here. So when I get to the end of that, I'll have a nice guide for where the stairwells are. All this will be nice and flush. That was another problem I had with designing this area here at the end of the concourses, where the stairwells weren't quite going to fit in very well. All this is going to be built in once they get all the these walls done. Before I put in all the little trim pieces, the little parts that make it so interesting to look at, all the walls are going to be glued together on a base with the roof panels in place, and possibly some lighting and so forth in there as well. I'll be painting that base with just some kind of real simple floor pattern, and try to do a little interior detail with some benches. That's what these boxes are supposed to represent. They might be a little too crowded in here. I might have to spread it out a little bit. But some interior detail, some floor pattern be painted onto the base. That'll solve all this problem I had with this thing sitting flush on the bottom. Plus I'll get the angle right to begin with, and I'll build the whole station on top of that base. So those are the big changes here. I'm sure many of you have started over on projects. Entire layouts have been ripped apart and done over because you just weren't quite satisfied with the results. And that's where I'm at with this project. That's my solution. I'm starting over. I want to do this thing right. It won't take that long, I don't think. It didn't take long to do all these little walls. I've only been working on this remake for about maybe 10-15 hours. It doesn't really take that long to put together these things, and this is the most tedious part of it, just getting all these little openings done. I don't know if you can see on the back side here, it's kind of all the little piecework that goes into this to get all these little parts done. The color on these back sides, I don't know if you saw for earlier videos, I used to work at a company that had a print shop, and they would do their printing on styrene. So they would do all their promotional stuff on styrene, and I was the beneficiary of all their scraps. So that's why my styrene has got images on the back. And one side's nice and clean. I do tend to have to sand this stuff off once in a while for gluing things together, but that's the price I pay for having a free pile of styrene to work with. So that's where we are at on the Union Station project. So I'm feeling very excited about this, to get it started again and do it right, and I'm very pleased with the way this is going to go. So I hope those of you who've been watching this whole long series didn't get to the end and find the last page missing and wondering how it's going to turn out, but it's going to be much better, and I'm feeling much happier about this. So that's where we are. Oh, that's where we're at. I'm starting over, feeling good about it too. So we'll have some more updates coming, and again, thanks so much for stopping by and seeing what's happening here. So thank you very much. Also, I don't have a whole lot of time to work on this. My job keeps me away from home anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week, so I only have a few hours over each weekend to work on this project. So it's coming. It'll go. Also, with that said, I don't really have a whole lot of time to get out there and watch all the great videos that a lot of you post out there. So that's why I try to do little shout outs here and there to fellow modelers who've been so kind to stop by and leave comments and so forth. So thank you so much for all the great comments. Shout out this week goes out to another YouTuber. I put his link to his channel down below in the box, so check him out. He's got some fun stuff. He's got not only model railroading, but model aircraft models, radio control models, cars, helicopters, all kinds of cool stuff. So he drops by and drops a few little comments in the box once in a while for me, so very appreciative of his support. And I'm going to keep trying to do more shout outs for other modelers too. So thanks for coming, thanks for staying.